Good morning, Professor.
Good morning,
Good
Dr.
morning.
Amartalingam.
Good morning, Professor.
Ma'am, good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Hira.
Morning, ma'am.
So, Dr. Amartalingam, I welcome and introduce the speaker, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, Professor. Yes, Professor. You can
Okay,
welcome and
thank you.
introduce.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, Professor.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Professor.
Good morning, Professor Vijayakumar.
Yeah, good morning, VSC. How are you?
Good, good. How are you? How's your mother?
She's okay, progressing
Okay.
slowly.
Yeah. Good to hear that. We'll just start in a couple of minutes.
Yeah. Amritalingam, how are you?
Fine, Professor. Good morning, Professor.
Good morning. How many participants are there?
Registered participants are 43, Professor.
Okay.
So there are regular absentees of 3, Professor.
Oh, okay. That's okay.
Yes, Professor.
So the rest of them, you can ask them to switch on their cameras so that at least
Definitely,
we can
Professor.
ensure that they are sitting in front of the camera.
Definitely, Professor. We will ensure, Professor. Dear participants, so good morning for the final day of our FTP. So please turn on your videos. All are humbly requested to turn on your video.
The 3 members of our Faculty Improvement Program Committee are Dr. Amritalingam, who is the chair, and then we have Mr. Nirmal Singh Hira and Dr. Thomas Felix.
Okay.
Dr. Akila is the other member. Unfortunately, she is unwell, so she will not be joining us this morning.
Okay.
So this, of course, is our first faculty improvement program that TNNLU has organized.
Okay.
You also know Dr. Vishnu Prasad, right?
Yeah. I
While
should
you
be
were there, it's already there. We can't hear you, Dr. Vishnu Prasad.
Yeah, you're muted.
Sorry, sir. Sir, I hope you're doing well, sir.
Yeah, I'm doing fine. Thank you. I hope you are settled in Trichy well.
We are working from home, sir. So I am now put up in
Oh,
Mysore.
okay.
Yeah.
So you are yet to suffer the heat of Trichy.
No, we had one share of it, sir, earlier.
He joined in 2019.
Okay. So
So till April, May, he was there, I think, or even longer. Only after that, he left.
Yes, Professor.
So should we start, Dr. Amritalingam, since it's already 10 o'clock?
We can, Professor. Please, Professor.
Yeah. Okay. A very good morning to everyone who is signed on here this morning for the first ever faculty improvement program organized by the Tamil Nadu National Law University. And a warm welcome to Professor Vijayakumar, who is a former colleague of mine and currently Vice Chancellor of the National Law Institute University, Bhopal. I wish to introduce Professor Vijayakumar so that we can go ahead and give the time to him to deliver the lecture this morning. First of all, I want to thank you, Professor Vijayakumar, for having accepted our invitation at such short notice and having agreed to deliver this lecture this morning. I know that you have a busy schedule and you have other commitments, so we're really grateful to you for having accepted our invitation. Professor Vijayakumar is probably no stranger to most of you who are here. He began his academic career by pursuing degrees in political science, and after having completed his MPhil in political science from the University of Madras, he went on to complete his Masters of Law and a PhD in law from the University of Madras in 1996. After which, during this period of time, he was appointed as Assistant Professor of Law at the National Law University, the National Law School of India University. And he is amongst the 7 founding faculty members of the experiment in legal education that was the National Law School of India University. So he, together with other colleagues, have developed and experimented in teaching methods as well as in the evaluation process. And having joined as Assistant Professor of Law, he went on to become Professor of Law at NLSIU in 1997. Before this, he was teaching at the Presidency College in Madras. At NLSIU, he has headed the Undergraduate Council, of which he was the chairman between 97 and 99. And then he headed the Postgraduate Council between 2003 and 2005. After which he became the registrar of NLSIU from 2005 to 2008. And during this entire period, he occupied the chair on refugee law and administered various programs in the under that. And taught constitutional law. I mean, in the early years, he has taught political science at NLSIU till a political science faculty was appointed. He has taught constitutional law, administrative law, human rights law, law of elections, and of course, refugee and humanitarian law. Besides the work he has done at NLSIU, he was regularly participating in various programs outside of the university and even abroad. In 1993, he was awarded the Ryoichi Sasakawa Young Leaders Fellowship at the Salzburg Seminar. He was visiting scholar with York University, Toronto in Canada at its Center for Refugee Studies between 2000 and 2003. He was exchange visitor at the National University of Singapore between 2004 to 2005 under the Asian Law Institute program. In fact, he has very close connections with the Asian Law Institute. And for NLSIU, he was the person that was directly connected with the Asian Law Institute and helping NLSIU. He visited USA in 1988 under the International Visitors Program of the USIS on the Living Constitution representing NLSIU. He was a member and vice chairperson of the Board of Governors of the Asian Law Institute till 2009. Between 2010 and 2013, he was the Vice Chancellor of the Tamil Nadu Dr. Ambedkar Law University in Chennai and was awarded the Amity Academic Excellence Award during 2011 and the Best Vice Chancellor's Award by the Indian Red Cross Society during 2012. He has published more than 47 articles in various national and international journals and also contributed some chapters to a few books. He has been a member of the Karnataka State Higher Education Council between 2012 and 2016. Now, it is indeed our honor and privilege to have somebody with such a illustrious academic and professional career here to address us on this very important topic that we have for today's morning on this, the final day of our faculty improvement program, namely changing trends in pedagogical practices. No one better than Professor Vijayakumar is qualified to be talking about this, given his long teaching career, and especially having been a founding member of the National Law School of India University, where several innovative techniques in teaching, evaluation, as well as in research were initiated by the founding faculty of NLSIU and contributing to the success of that experiment, resulting in now more than 24 national law school type institutions all over the country. Once again, a hearty welcome to you, Professor Vijayakumar, and thank you for having accepted our invitation to deliver this lecture this morning. Thank you.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Thank you very much for your kind words. Good morning, Amrithalingam and all my colleagues present here this morning. Indeed, it is my privilege to be speaking to you on a topic which nobody knows and I also do not know. But I think we have to learn it together to understand what we are talking. And the title itself is too broad, Changing Trends in Pedagogical Practices, and that too in the interdisciplinary approach, which is the major theme of the FDP. I would like to just make a few observations, and I hope you will be in a position to see my PowerPoint presentation. Are you able to see the PowerPoint presentation?
Yes, sir.
And other screen is shared, Professor. PPT is not, Professor.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now PPT shared, Professor.
Okay, good. Right, I need to tell you something before I begin. I have not taken anybody's assistance either in preparation of this PPT or in making presentation on the WebEx platform. Because these are the things that we have learned over a period of time, and then WebEx platform in the last 2.5 years, thanks to our COVID pandemic, right? That kept us to understand and appreciate various platforms, including WebEx, which we have subscribed to. Right. Now, I do not want to define what is pedagogy. I think without knowing that, we would not have stepped into this position, right? As assistant professor or as a teacher, wherever we are. So therefore, pedagogy is something which everyone knows. But the title of my presentation is Changing Trends in Pedagogy, right? What does it mean? Is it changing, or I think we speak through our mouth? We use the blackboard or the whiteboard, the color of the board is different, but still we use them. And we also use in between certain ICT equipments here and there. And then all of them form part of these pedagogical practices. But we are not going to speak about those pedagogical practices alone. But we have to look at the changing trends, not necessarily in India, but throughout the globe. And I need to tell you a couple of stories about the negative impact of the changing trends as well. Let me start with the negative trends so that you will understand what I am trying to say on the new pedagogical or evolving pedagogical or changing pedagogical trends in the world today, including India. Some time ago, when I say some time ago, it is almost 4 decades ago. I really do not know how many of you would have seen even the tape recorders in those days. If you have been during that particular point of time, people used to keep the tape recorder on their shoulders, walk proudly, because it used to produce some music of their choice, and they can, cater to the needs of the people in and around them. It had also had an impact in teaching, because it happened in London somewhere in the early 80s. All those tape recorders had what you call as the cassettes, which ran for a period of about 30 minutes, 45 minutes, and 1 hour. So you can put 1 hour tape recorder in it. And one student went to the class with the tape recorder. He had some other work. What he did was, when the teacher started speaking, he pressed the recording button and then walked out. After 1 hour, the tape recorder automatically stopped. So this fellow came and took the tape recorder and went off. Everyone was curious to find out what he was doing. Next day they asked him, he said he had some other pressing work, but he didn't want to miss the teacher's lecture. So he has captured the lecture of the teacher, and he had listened to the lecture in the evening at home. Everyone thought it was a nice approach. In the next 3-4 weeks, the teacher entered the class and he found in each and every chair there was a tape recorder, right? So anyhow, he was paid to teach and he taught for 1 hour and left. Then it also struck the teacher, if the students are doing it, why not I do it? So the next class, some of the students were present. In some places the tape recorders were there. And the teacher walked in with a tape recorder, pressed the button of the lecture that he had already recorded and walked out. So the students were surprised that the teaching learning process is now relying totally upon the technology at that particular point of time, the tape recorder, in which the students were using it and the teacher also started using it. The lesson that we have to learn is that the teacher must also catch up with the trends, right? And I don't know 99% of the teachers today. I may be wrong. I would like to be proved to be wrong. Can be like Professor Devidas or Professor Ajappa or even Professor Visvesharaya, who would step into the class without a small, even a small sheet of paper in their hands, but they would mentally prepare themselves as to what to speak and what not to speak. For 2 hours, it will be a flow of their thought. And today, with the reliance on these technological gadgets, let me tell you, our ability to cope up with that type of teaching is a practice of the past. But the teacher caught up with that technological growth. And then sometime later, there was something which caught up both the teacher and the taught. I'll come to that. Let me explain to you the second story. The second story happened in Australia in the 90s. In the 90s, when the videography was ruling the roost, the teacher used to record the lectures on the video, and then for the benefit of the students, he would place that cassette. In those days there used to be a big cassette, right, playing for about an hour or so, and he will name that cassette and then the date, the lecture, the topic, and then place it in the library and go. And the students at leisure, whenever they found time, they will go to the library, and there used to be a separate section, digital section, where they will go and play that video and then listen to the teacher. The opportunity is for those students who have missed the lecture to listen to the teacher once again or afresh. Once again, if they need some clarification, they would listen to this second time, third time, whatever it is. And if they have some doubts, they will interact with the teacher later. This practice continued in Australia for some time. And then one occasion, there was a communication from an employer saying that the student claims that he was your student during this period of study. Would you please certify the capabilities of this candidate in terms of his understanding of law or appreciation, evaluation, so on and so forth, and its application to practical problems? The teacher was clean bowled because the teacher was not able to identify who exactly was a student, right? And therefore, the teacher refused to write a sort of recommendation or commendation, and very politely refused to say, I'm sorry, I can't remember this student. So when you try to use these technological devices at different points of time, there is also widening gap between the teacher and the taught. I would rather say this is what is very, very essential in the teaching learning process of the intimacy between the teacher and the taught. Please do not misread me when I say intimacy. Intimacy is nothing but a closeness, right? Dr. Elizabeth will realize and will appreciate what I am trying to say. When the students, the alumni come to the campus, they never used to go to the Vice Chancellor's room directly, but either they will come to my room, Professor Devidas' room, Elizabeth's room, and they look for a few teachers with whom they have fought, with those teachers whom they have discussed a lot, and with the teachers they have developed some amount of interest, right, in discussing their problems, not only academic but also their personal issues. This is likely to be missed over a period of time, and that is the biggest negative impact, as I see, in the changing trends in the pedagogical practices that we are now embracing. We are yet to embrace it in its full format. We have done a little, but I think in the next 2 to 3 years, we'll be in a position to take up all these things one after the other. And that is what the new education policy is also saying. And maybe after 5 years, we will realize the situation that I am trying to say, that what is supposed to bring the teacher and the students together in the process of learning, because the teacher is also a learner. I would request all the teachers to keep this in mind. The moment you say that you know everything and the student doesn't know anything, you stop to be a teacher. The time has come that you should stop to be a teacher. The teacher continues to be a teacher, and the teacher continues to learn, whether he is teaching or she is teaching at all or not, but continues to learn. You will be surprised, almost every week without any break, even after I left, even after those people left National Law School, Professor Devidas and Professor Rajappa, they are constantly in touch with me, asking me, what about this particular judgment? Have you read this? Have you read that? I read this, I couldn't understand. What is your view on this particular aspect? What is the relationship between this type of behavior in the UN? So on and so forth. So you can see that even in their 90s, they are 93, 94-year-old teachers, but their inquisitiveness to learn is not dead. And that is what we need to keep. Whatever is the pedagogical practices, we must try to learn along with the students. We may be knowing a little bit better, but we don't know everything. And therefore, we should allow the students to question us at every point of time. And let me tell you, only in their questioning, you will start learning, and you will unlearn something what you have already learned. And therefore, particularly in the field of law, in the study of law, two things we need to understand: the critical analysis that is required for every teacher to understand and appreciate so that the teacher is able to interact meaningfully. And number two, to understand critically in a multidisciplinary or interdisciplinary or even transdisciplinary approach to the problems, so that the teacher is able to keep on leading the students and keep on learning along with the students. And it is a joint venture in the new pedagogical practices that we are likely to imbibe in the next possibly a decade or so. Things are moving very fast. The pandemic, COVID pandemic, has hastened it. In the last 2 years, I think every one of you must have taught the classes through the online mode. And I need not tell you about the pluses and minuses of this online mode, right? If there are about 120 students in the class, you don't know how many of them are really, you can see them, they are logging in, the attendance is complete, maybe 1 or 2 absent, they are not able to log in because of the internet problem or whatever it is. But are they attentive? I have my own doubts, right? Are they attentive? In the WebEx, at least 50 candidates can switch on their cameras and see each other, right? But we seldom see the students switching on their cameras, and you have to question them, talk to them, call out their names to find out very frequently whether they are present or not. So it is a joint venture. Therefore, we have to imbibe this joint venture concept to the student community. Though we are offline, though we are teaching online, we are still closer. You can stop me, question me, challenge my views, and that is how the interaction should continue. Then I think we may still continue to appreciate the trends, the recent trends in the pedagogical practices, right? There are problems relating to this. It is not that easy, as I say. There are problems because the entire country sometimes faces some problem relating to the internet availability, the broadband availability, or accessibility from the student point of view, the electricity disruptions from now and then. All these things add to the problems, but I think the solution is a better solution. At least we have made the students learn something. In the past 2 years where they were not able to come to the campus at all, to have face-to-face interaction with the teachers and enjoy what we call it as the community life, living together on campus. Having said this, I would like to define the new pedagogy in my own way so that whatever mistakes I commit, I can go under this exercise, broadening understanding of the new pedagogy. In my opinion, the new pedagogy or the changing trends in the pedagogical practices, in my opinion, includes the entire academic environment in the teaching learning processes. Please keep this in mind. It involves the entire academic environment in the teaching learning process. And when I say teaching learning process, certain things that are left behind should also be included, that is evaluation and certification processes as well. Now, they were separated earlier because in the pedagogical practices that we employed in the classroom teaching, it was only covering the syllabus or uncovering the syllabus to a particular point of time. Then you have the examination, which is not part of that pedagogical practices. And then it was the role played by the teacher to evaluate, to set the paper, evaluate, announce the result, and for the institution to certify that somebody has passed, failed, or passed with some grade, so on and so forth. But the changing trend in the pedagogical practices of the 21st century, as we are now getting into the third decade of the 21st century, it involves teaching, learning process, evaluation process, and also certification process. All these things the teachers should know so that you are able to use the ICT equipments, processes meaningfully and devise the courses in the years to come. Certain courses have already been developed. I'll come to that a little later as I proceed. So in my opinion, the changing trends in the pedagogical practices in the third decade of the 21st century would include all these 4 parameters of teaching, learning, evaluation, and certification. And in between, whatever you do, all of them will possibly fall within these 4 pillars of what you call it as pedagogical practices, the evolving pedagogical practices of the 21st century. Now, this is what we call it as integrated teaching, right? So in the integrated teaching, we may not expect the students to be present in a particular classroom. And therefore, the Bar Council or any other regulatory body cannot prescribe that you shall have only around 30 students or 60 students in a classroom, nothing more than that. Because the changing pedagogical practices, the entire globe is your classroom, right? The number may be 5,000, the number may be 10,000. Today, there are technological equipments and processes available, media available for us to reach the entire global audience when the number is more than 10,000 or even beyond that. And therefore, we need to understand this very clearly and prepare ourselves in the delivery of our lectures in a much more meaningful and focused manner than what we did earlier, right? Now, in this process, in these changing trends of pedagogical practices, we also need to understand certain things. Particularly as we are speaking about teaching of law, I do not know how many of you know about ROS, R-O-S-S. Wherever I speak, wherever I address about the FDP program, I speak about ROS. Is there anyone in the participants who can understand what is this ROS, R-O-S-S would mean? Anybody? Or anybody would like to take a wild guess? ROSS, ROS.
Sir, is it based on the name of the person who gave this teaching pedagogy, sir?
Good guess, but not right. Right. ROS is the first robo lawyer, right? ROSS is the first robo lawyer employed by a law firm in New York, which is involved in insolvency practices, insolvency and bankruptcy practices. This is a robo built by IBM Watson Group, right? And what it does is, you can Google search and you may try to know more about this ROS, right? This has happened almost a decade ago, right? So we are speaking about some development that took place about a decade ago. This ROS, is hired by a law firm in New York. What it does is, as the lawyer enters the office, he will greet, hi Ross, how are you? I need some information about the motor vehicle accident. And I have a case pending before either the circuit court or the Supreme Court or any other court of appeal, right? By the time he gets into his office, this robo lawyer, which is AI based, powerful tool, which not only stores and retrieves the information, but it also uses the artificial intelligence to collect the recent data from across the globe, right? In a fraction of a minute, process it, and by the time the lawyer goes and sits in his office, it starts printing the material that the ROS is willing to give to the lawyer. Now the time taken is a few seconds or maybe a couple of minutes for them to update the legal skill, the legal information, the latest judgment, the latest amendment, not only in his state, but in the entire United States and also in other jurisdictions if at all they need to compare and explain to the judges how this case is to be decided. Now, if you continue to teach our students without the use of a laptop, without the use of the computers that we have today, then possibly we are producing lawyers who are not useful for the community in the years to come. And Dr. Elizabeth will know this, and some of my colleagues in Bangalore would also know this. I was the first one to establish the computer lab in the National Law School in 1997. We had about 30 computers given by the Infosys chairman, Mr. Narayana Murthy, donated to us. And we set up a computer lab. And that was the time I was working with All India Reporter, who were digitizing the entire volume from 1950 to 1990 in a digital form, which can be retrieved, through the computers, through the use of a software. And they were giving what you call it as a CD and a lock. Without the lock being installed, you cannot use the CD. And without the key, you cannot use that CD also. This was inaugurated by the then Chief Justice, Justice Verma, who is no more with us. And Dr. Mitra was the director then. The Chief Justice, our Chancellor, cut the ribbon and opened the lab in the cellar floor of the NLS Bangalore. And he went around the 30 computers and asked Dr. Mitra, what is the use of these computers for legal education? Right? I'm just telling you, number one, for the legal, the top executive in the judicial process, the Chief Justice of India, asking this question in 1997, what is the use of these computers in legal education? While decades ago in the US, they started using computers in legal education. Right? And then Director Mitra asked me to explain and how to, use this CD-ROM. I was trying to explain how faster it is possible for us to look into the judgment of the Supreme Court, how many judges are there, and which is the largest bench, so on and so forth. And within a fraction of a second, and I was sitting and then demonstrating. Justice Verma was standing behind. He was not even willing to take the seat, but for the next 40 minutes he was listening to, and he was giving certain keywords for me to use that, employ them, and give him the output instantaneously. And at the fag end of that, he said that this is going to change the entire edifice of legal education in this country. Of course, he was absolutely right. When he started, he asked what is the meaning of this computer lab for the law students. And his quick understanding and appreciation in 40 minutes, coming to the conclusion that this is going to change the entire edifice of legal education in this country, he was absolutely right. And in the law school, where the students started bringing their own laptops, and they were so possessive earlier, 1 or 2 laptops we lost in the process. But in the next 2 to 3 years, you would see every classroom littered with laptops, nobody bothered about each other's laptop. And then when I became the registrar, I was the first one to close the computer lab as well. Now in this 10 years time, things have changed. Things have changed so fast that we have stopped relying upon the desktop computers for accessing the legal databases. We started using the laptop or the tablets, which became smaller, mobile. You can carry it wherever you want to go. The cost of these instruments started falling down, and they could easily locate wherever it is smuggled out. You could easily locate where that instrument is and you can retrieve it. All these things made the people to rely upon the confidence and leave these laptops, the mobile phones, etc. in the classroom, walk around everywhere. And therefore we thought the footfall in the lab was diminishing and almost it was no footfall at some point of time. Then we decided that we should close this lab, and we closed the lab exactly 10 years after. And we moved around 15 computers to the library. If somebody comes without the laptop or without any access to the legal databases, they can use these 15 desktops kept in the library. And that explains that within a decade that we have moved very fast, that we started with the lab and we have closed the lab, and that gives us amazing way that the millennials have been integrating themselves with the changing information and communication technology of not only in India, of the world, right? Today, every student of law school and every faculty of the law school probably has 1 or 2 mobile phones with at least 2 to 4 SIM cards, right? And they can access the information faster than the teachers. And sometimes it becomes a little problematic. When you go to the class and say in 2020, the Supreme Court decided like this, one student says, no sir, in 21 it has been overruled, right? So you can understand, and the teacher has to take it. He said, thank you very much, and I will look into it, I'll update myself. So a time has come that you have to be on the go throughout to learn, continue to learn. And this technology has made us work harder in the teaching processes so that we are able to integrate as much information as possible and deliver as much information possible in a much more meaningful manner so that we are able to keep our floor intact and then make our students learn things better. And let me tell you, let me accept this. In almost all the law schools, I may be forgiven for this sweeping statement of mine. The students are far ahead in use of ICT when compared to the teacher collectively. You may conduct a survey in each and every school. You will be surprised that the students are way ahead in identifying the tools, in identifying the software, in using the software, right, in doing everything online far better than the teachers. So therefore, time has come that when we are talking about changing trends in pedagogical practices, we need to equip ourselves with all these changing practices as early as possible. And that is why in the last 2 years, I have set my teachers to what you call it as the National Technology Teachers Training Institute, popularly called as NITA. And fortunately, we have a center in Bhopal. And I used to send the teachers to those places so that they give them hands-on experience, how to make the digital lessons, right? And how to create the MOOCs platform in each and every subject. So now the role of a teacher has changed from simply teaching before the computer, before the, what I am doing today. You also do something more than that in a digital form. And then I'll come to that next change, which is now going to plague us in the years to come. It may minimize the programs and the work of the teachers, but it also will enhance the work of the teacher in the initial stages when you particularly plan your curriculum before you commence your teaching, right? As I proceed, I hope I am audible, isn't it?
Yes, Professor. Yes, Professor.
Yeah, if you have any doubt, any question, you are most welcome to stop me, question me. Otherwise, I may also give you some, say, around 10 to 15 minutes time at the fag end of my presentation. Even if I don't complete, I will abruptly stop and ask if you have any specific questions or comments. We can go ahead with that, right? Okay. With this few background information and the stories that I mentioned, let me just give you some basic introduction. Of my presentation. Karan Gupta has identified 3 pillars of higher education, not only in India today, but in the globe. It's just a 4-page article that he had written, but that article pregnant with ideas which are not necessarily Indian but global in approach. The 3 pillars of higher education in general, according to him, and he was right, one is digitization, second one is internationalization, and the third one is collaboration. And in the theme that I am presenting today, changing trends in pedagogical practices, we cannot escape the onslaught of these 3 pillars: the digitization, internationalization, and collaboration. This is not only in higher education of every sort, whether it is professional education, professional legal education, medical education, or technical education, whatever it is. There are institutions today in the globe which have experimented some time ago completely digital universities or digital colleges, where there is no physical existence. And in India also, there is already a person, a lawyer, who has started a global digital university, right, in India, right, on forensic, what do you call it, as cyber crimes, right, cyber forensics digital platform. So there is no physical existence of the university. There is no physical presence of a teacher or a classroom or the students, but they are all interacting with them, with each other, across the board, anytime, 24/7. There is no specific timetable, right, which we used to prepare and follow it sincerely. There was no timetable because each according to his own convenience. That seems to be the logic. So there are revolutionary changes that are going to take place, and these 3 pillars of higher education are certainly turning out to be game changers in the education space in India as well. These 3 pillars bring twofold effect. The first one is bringing affordable education to a much larger audience, right? I hope some of you must have experienced one of our alumni, Dr. Nachiketa, who is now the dean at Jagran Lake City University, a neighboring institute, a sister institution in Bhopal. He has started very innovative, institution called as virtual law school, right? And this virtual law school, he brought a lot many sitting and retired judges of the Supreme Court, senior teachers, experts, lawyers, and others to teach free of cost on subjects, and almost a variety of subjects. He continued for almost 6 months. Then finally he received a love letter from the Bar Council of India. That how do you call yourself a law university, virtual law school, how can you call it? Have you taken the approval from the Bar Council? You cannot be teaching these type of programs to the students. Neither the regulator understood what he was doing. He was doing a wonderful service to the community. And that's what I was trying to say, the twofold effect. The first effect is where the students did not get the positive aspect of a good teacher teaching a subject matter. They were not able to understand. They can log on to such classes and try to understand this better. And that is available free of cost at their convenience. So there is no question of getting up at 7 o'clock, getting ready to the classroom at 8:40 or 8:50, running to the classroom, nothing is required. Leisurely they can do it. The second one is allowing collaboration between universities and countries, thus sharing the best practices in education management. I think this is very, very crucial. In the last 2 years, I think Dr. Elizabeth has also organized the history conference, legal history conference. We also did something on economics, London Economics Conference. We also have this international alternate dispute resolution and the mediation tournament. We were able to bring experts from across the globe. There were more than 18 experts from the US, Europe, sitting and retired judges from India, Nepal, Sri Lanka, Singapore, right? They're all coming on the same platform and addressing the student body. And that brings us the collaboration between the universities and across the countries, across the borders of the countries, and thus sharing the best practices in education management. To be very frank with you, I was not aware of the fact that one among the top 7 consumers of electricity in the world today is the Bitcoin industry, right? I don't know how many of you know about this. Please carefully listen to this point. One among the top 7 consumers of electricity in the world today is the Bitcoin, or what you call it as the cryptocurrencies in the world, using the blockchain technology. And whether we have to have such an expensive platform consuming lots of energy, electricity, but still you are interested in the economic welfare, at what expenditure? These are all the questions, and that was possible when we had an international conference on cryptocurrencies. And this was brought out by a German professor who informed us that cryptocurrencies are one among the top 7 consumers of electricity in the world. Right? So therefore, it brings lots of information across the boundaries through a single platform, and it also brings best practices in the education management as well. So therefore, we had certain classes come and sing at 7 o'clock in the morning. And we had few classes around 11 o'clock in the night, right? Because the time management between 2 different zones. All these things, we need to take it with us. They are not going to be transitory in nature. They are not going to come to an end with the pandemic coming to an end. They will continue. They will further strengthen. And that will be the manner in which the entire globe is moving forward. Now look at the next bullet point. When we spoke about collaboration between universities, the next bullet point very clearly says collaboration amongst universities has replaced competition, right? Instead of competing with each other, we are now working with universities in bringing the expertise, in sharing the expertise, right? And therefore, the pedagogical experience that we are now undergoing should also keep these things. Maybe out of 90 classes, I can bring 3 or 4 experts from outside my jurisdiction with the consent of the teacher consent to address the student body, right? When we started teaching the law, state and political obligation, the teacher was not aware of the content of the syllabus. So I also engaged say around 10 classes out of 90 hours, but the teacher was always present, listening to everything. And I had requested my former colleague, Sitaram Kakrala, to address the students. He was sitting in Bangalore. Those students were spread across the country. They all listened to him with care and curiosity. And the teacher also learned something. And therefore, this type of institutional and individual collaboration among the universities and individuals would replace competition. It is not how much I know better than Sitaram Kakrala or how much he does know better than me. That is not the competition. That we are able to share our best expertise available to the student community is what is more important. And therefore the collaboration brings out the best in different institutions and individuals, and it replaces the competition. Now, therefore, collectively put together, the world is now an open classroom. Please carefully look at this. The world is now an open classroom, and the contemporary pedagogy has to rely upon these changes, right? So if you are talking about changing trends in pedagogy, you have to incorporate all these developments. Otherwise, we will not be in a position to understand and move forward and be fit enough to be teachers of not only this decade, but the decades to come, right? That's the first point. Now, very quickly, I thought I always rely upon cartoons and the clip arts to convey the meaning. Now, if you look at the pedagogical tools that it has evolved over a period of time, from the blackboard to digital is what I have given as the title. Chalk and talk, we used to go to the blackboard, write something. And some teachers turned to the blackboard and started writing on the blackboard, and when the teacher turned back, the students may not be there, right? That is the focus shown by the teachers, and even with the fraction of a second you turn, you will see the students just leaving the classroom, right? We only replaced the blackboard with whiteboard, but I think the trend continued as it is till the first one came into picture. This happened in science disciplines earlier, called as slide projector, right? So law teachers possibly seldom had an opportunity to look at the slide projector, but we did use the slide projector because when science people can use it, why not we use it? So when we speak to the students about the Supreme Court, the student possibly may not know how the Supreme Court looked like. So we used to have a photograph which we have taken in front of the Supreme Court, right? Put it into negatives and then put it in the form of a slide and put it and project it to the student body to show this is how the Supreme Court looked like, right? This is how the things look like. So it was the beginning of the process of integrating technology in teaching. And then in science, possibly they brought all the slides, right, to the benefit of the students. That was the first one. Second one, what you see is the OHP, the overhead projector. I have used it in Presidency College liberally. And when we moved to National Law School, I think Elizabeth also would remember, we had these OHPs, 4 or 5 of them. Whenever the teacher summoned it, the staff would go and install it in the classroom. And we used to have a transparency. So with color ink, we used to write and then place it on that, screen. Then it will be projected over to a screen. That became easier for the students to see and the teacher to teach, right? But let me tell you that this OHP brought with it lots of negative influences as well. The teacher was totally dependent on the material that were to be placed on the OHP. The entire book. In law school, I have personally seen this. Bangia, when the teacher was teaching contract, the teacher had the patience. I really appreciate the teacher. Wrote the entire Bangia book on transparencies. And then she would place it on this and then start reading from the screen along with the students. And if the students asked any doubt, she would replace that present slide with the previous one and start reading from that one. Now, even the minimal understanding of the subject matter, the ability to respond to the questions when the students ask some clarification, I think slowly we started losing track of, because our reliance was more on technology and the confidence that we have everything we have written is now going to be projected. Why should we even understand or know this, right? Slowly but steadily, we moved towards the LCD and now LED projectors, wireless projectors nowadays, right? And let me tell you, almost around 20 years ago, I had the opportunity of visiting the IIIT in Bangalore. Dr. Sadagopan was the founding director, and the Infosys had established a digital classroom. And let me tell you, I am, even after 20 years, I am yet to see a digital classroom of that nature, right? And that classroom, when the teacher entered, before the teacher entered, they provided a small console like the mobile phone that you have in your hand. And the moment you open it or press it, touch it, the screen becomes live. And then it has all the gadgets. You touch one of the gadgets, from light to microphone, from digital projector, OHP or slide projector. All these instruments were integrated in one place. The teacher can walk across the classroom. Every square meter had a microphone, and the microphone would disconnect the moment the teacher moved away from that 1 square meter to the next adjacent square meter. It was so crystal clear, audio, visual, the screen will fall from the roof, it will roll back into the roof. My God, it was such a wonderful digital classroom that I saw for the first time in the IIITB. I am yet to see a similar one even after 20 years. Even in many of the law schools, I'm yet to see them, right? So that is the speed in which we are developing legal education, and particularly in integrating this technological growth. And therefore, the pedagogy that we have to rely upon this is also slower than that we expect, right? Okay. From there, we move to this PowerPoint. And then in the last 2 years, of course, online classes. And then comes the LMS software. I think LMS is what I meant earlier. Your assessment is also simultaneous, and certification also is integrated in this process. So therefore, the pedagogical tools we have to understand so that we are able to understand the changing trends in the pedagogical processes and understand and move forward, learn to the extent that is possible so that we could also catch up with the student body. Otherwise, there will be a widening gap between the teacher and the taught because the information is available everywhere. It is not the domain of the teacher anymore, right? Today, there are so many Babas available in the Google, right? You ask for any topic, right? You have the answers available, and then the students can copy it, cut and paste it, do whatever they want. Now, this online classroom, the central picture that is depicted is what I have witnessed, right? That when you ask the teachers to switch on the cameras, this is the purpose, to find out whether they are really listening to, interacting with us, or they are attending to their own work. They have logged in, they have made their attendance felt, and they can do anything they want, right? This is the situation in the online classes, and this will continue in India, but in Western countries, this is not the process. But unfortunately, in the last 2 years, even in the Western countries, please, I have done a little bit of research before preparing these slides, that 40 to 45% of the students have cheated in the examination in the last 2 years. In many of the Western countries, this type of cheating was non-existent earlier, right? With the classroom becoming global, the cheating also becomes global, and they have conducted surveys, and then the students have accepted that at some point of time or the other, they have cheated the examination process, 40 to 45%. And plagiarism is what attacks us. That similarity, features in writing an article, how much we copy and how much we don't. All these things are the lessons that we need to learn and keep in mind to understand these tools so that we can move forward. Now, why should we know this? The context. The context is the globalization of higher education. And I really do not know how many of you know that education, whether it is primary, secondary or higher education, technical and professional education, they are all part and parcel of the global undertaking or understanding in what you call it as GATS, General Agreement on Trade in Services. So they are all now considered as services, and if they are services, if you have to maintain some quality, you have to buy it, right? So they have attached some price for each and everything. They will give you some sort of free classes for few days, and then they'll say if you want to improve, you can continue, right, by paying this much of money. So therefore, the service-oriented education is not going to be the logic anymore. Service as a commodity in the process, the Indira Gandhi Open University is minting money not only in India but across the globe. And similarly, other universities will also enter, right? The boundaries, they are not the limitations at all. This is what we mentioned to the University Grants Commission when they said NLS should not have the distance education beyond the territories of Karnataka. When we questioned them that if you rely upon internet as a source, why not? You cannot prevent them from enrolling, right? It took 20 years, still the UGC has not understood. They are now talking about territorial jurisdictions. So these are all challenges. We need to understand the context and recoup ourselves in a manner that we are able to assimilate and understand these changing trends and stand up to their expectation. Therefore, the students are no longer required to be physically present in classroom or in the institutions. This is what I meant when I use the phrase 24/7, right? Similarly, institutions are functioning virtually and expanding the reach to learners outside their jurisdictions. One of the programs of the Jindal Global University, which I had the privilege of addressing them, there were more than 10,000 participants. The WebEx platform or the Google, the Zoom platform which they had hired possibly allowed up to 10,000, right, or 1,000. Beyond that, they used what you call it as the other social media platform to reach out to more than 10,000 audience and across the borders, right? So therefore, that is the second point that we need to keep in mind. And the quintessential steps to match global standards, right, is what is now presented in University News, right, by a researcher, published very recently, right, not very recently in 2010, right. So you can see these 5 important steps: emphasis on self-learning and lifelong learning. What this lifelong learning will mean, I'll come to that little later. Spirit to work together. It is not that the teacher gives and the student receives, but the spirit to work together. Skill to synthesize and check to verify the informational reliability. The fourth one, skill to link and apply knowledge, not necessarily learn, but to apply knowledge to practical problems around us in the community and to seek practical application of that knowledge. And finally, professionalism, a word which nobody knows, a word which there is no definite meaning, but I appreciated the way that the book title, Who is a Professional, by Subrato Bagchi. I think the soft version is also available on the internet. You can read the first 2 chapters, Who is a Professional. It's amazing, right? According to him, a judge is not a professional, a lawyer is not a professional, a doctor is not a professional. And ultimately, he says, an undertaker, right, who has systematically collected the unclaimed bodies, went and cremated, he calls that person a professional. And it is something very moving, to read that. please read that first 2 chapters of Subrata Bagchi's book to understand what it really means. Now there are prerequisites, and I may not have the benefit of time because only an hour and a half is given to me. To make the global education meaningful, enhancing the quality of human resource, and that is a point which I have been emphasizing, re-emphasizing again and again. We should understand the context in which we are working, and therefore we need to upgrade ourselves. And one among the objectives of the FDP is to improve the quality of the human resource present in the teacher. Cross-country accreditation and recognition, and today you will know that in the QS global ranking, there are 2 law schools which are present. One is Jindal Global Law School and NLSU in the top 200 institutions. That becomes necessary because that is a process of attracting students from outside India to come and seek learning at a price 1/4 or 1/10 of the cost available in the US or in Europe. We are also welcoming global talent, and Jindal Global employs many teachers from abroad, and some of the law schools also employ them on a temporary basis. Strengthening infrastructure, particularly the ICT infrastructure. In fact, I was addressing the librarians of this country. We had 2 conferences, the third one got postponed. I was telling them that time has come that we need to close down the libraries, because we have spent crores of rupees in developing the libraries in the law schools, and the footfall in the library is absolutely zero. At the time of submitting the projects, the number increases. At the time of examination, the number increases. But after that, even the teachers don't go to the library. So I have come to that conclusion that the time has come that we need to rethink, close down the library as a resource, and convert everything in the digital platform, and make the library staff to equip themselves in translating these digital platforms available in one form or the other to the benefit of the teachers, researchers, and the students, right? Then comes selective expansion. What we need is international collaboration, role of international agencies, right? Collaboration in terms of research, teaching, evaluation, curriculum development, materials, including materials, partnerships, mutual understanding and recognition. All these things will be part of the trend that we need to understand and appreciate. Otherwise, we will be doing something which possibly would not stand up to the level that we are supposed to, right? And that is why many of the Western universities have used the summer programs and the winter programs, and some of the law schools today, they also started looking at winter and summer programs to attract the students from abroad and exposing them to the Indian laws and legal institutions, the culture, the language, so on and so forth. So it can easily become a global institution if you are able to use the tools much more meaningful manner. 5 trends in higher education, right? Very quickly, let me complete this. The technological trends, right? And I will not, this is what I have been explaining so far, so I don't want to use this. First bullet point, this would force the teachers to change how they teach, right? So it is not that you go with your book, note, or whatever it is and then teach. So now you have to use these technological tools, and these are the challenges to be faced by the teachers, right? Advanced students may receive additional learning resources for deeper insights. So therefore, you are able to cater to the needs of and the benefit of good learners, average learners, and improve upon what you call it as the lesser competent students in the learning process. You also look at soft skill, I'm sorry, it is soft skills, not soft skills, it's my mistake. Training, critical thinking, problem solving, creativity. Teachers to find a balance between online and offline classes, because as I mentioned to you, the negative impact of the online classes earlier. So a blend must also be realized by the teachers. What is important is the decreasing attention span in the classroom. The challenge, it is the place where the educational psychologists come into picture. And in the Western countries, they have used the educational psychologist. We seldom use them to increase the decreasing attention span, right? Professor Mitra used to say, 10 minutes, after 10 minutes, the students switch off. Switch off meaning is that they are not attentive to your classes anymore, right? And particularly with their mobiles that they are carrying, the educational psychologists in the US have identified the students feel depressed if they don't get a message on their mobile phone within 15 minutes from somebody, right? Or a missed call from somebody within 15 minutes. After 15 minutes, they start meddling with the mobile phone to look at whether there is a message, whether there is a missed call. They become little disoriented. Therefore, keeping their attention span for a longer duration becomes very, very important for the changing pedagogical, processes that we have to undertake. Facilitating learning versus teaching, right? Please keep this in mind. This is very, very important. You are not going to be a teacher, right? In the years to come, you are going to be a facilitator. The best teachers will be those who can help students take ownership of their teaching, ownership of their learning, right? So you have to cull out from different resources, channelize them, and you become a facilitator, and then make the students take the responsibility of the learning process. And that is the way that the teachers have to move forward. And that is what is meant by lifelong learning trend, which means the students will continue to learn even after they leave the formal education system from educational universities to other places. Now, let me quickly rush through the UGC and the new National Education Policy 2020. What does it say? Whatever I have said, right, in an explanatory mode, giving some examples, giving some pictorial depiction of that, you can see this. The UGC in the new National Education Policy is using a language called as blended learning, right? And the following are the important features of blended learning. And every pedagogical practices that we may employ must also must take cognizance of these units as well. What are they? Increased student engagement in learning with the object of increasing their attention span. Enhanced teacher-student interaction. Responsibility for learning, which I think in the previous slide I already mentioned. Time management and flexibility. It is not necessarily that 60 minutes that we have at your disposal. It can be 24/7, anytime learning, anywhere learning. That's what the technology is now saying. Time management and flexibility, improved student learning outcomes, enhanced institutional reputation, more flexible teaching and learning environment, more amenable for self and continuous learning, better opportunities for experiential learning. Now, in this blended mode, what should be the role of the teachers, right? So that we understand the changing trends in the pedagogy and equip ourselves over a period of time, right? So the first one is the role from knowledge provider to coach and being a mentor, and thereby bring more profound influence and effect on the students' learning. So our pedagogy has to undergo drastic changes if you take the first part into consideration. Second one, in blended learning, it becomes more student driven, bottom up and customized learning, right? It is bottom up. It is not that I have it, you take it. That approach will be gone, right? You all start by saying that we know nothing. Let us slowly build the blocks. Let us learn together, right? Bottom up and customized learning. And that is what I finally made a mention about LMS software. I'll conclude with that. This emphasizes on enhanced role of technology in providing instructions. It facilitates interactive tech-based learning, individualized pacing, and continuous engagement of students. Now, the next one says it provides teachers with a fuller, more accurate picture of how each student is doing, right? That is individual focus, individual evaluation, attention, everything. The teacher will know how the individual student is able to perform when compared to a regular classroom. It yields more frequent and personal teacher interaction with individual students. They can write questions at any point of time. The teacher can respond to that question over a period of time, right? So that personal attention can be given, while the student may be hesitant in asking a question in a classroom because the other students may look down upon them for their inability to understand. Finally, the blended learning combines the best aspects of online learning with the best aspects of direct instruction. So it is an amalgamation, a harmonious blend, and therefore the role of the teachers in understanding the changing trends in pedagogy must take all these things into consideration. Very quickly, I don't want to read this, new pedagogy, right? I have taken this from an article. You can also log on to this www.contractnorth.ca, right? And I'm not going to read these 7 bullet points, and I think I will give you 5 minutes to interact with each other, right? So what new pedagogy means, by and large, I have covered everything, right? Indirectly in one form or the other. And then 7 contributing elements to the new pedagogy, which is also present in the same thing. Only addition that I have given is the platforms that the UGC has been developing over a period of time, the MOOCs, the SWAYAM, the open educational resources available in the world today, so on and so forth, and direct and informal online learning like OER, YouTube, LinkedIn. And then it has become a problem also because some of the students started complaining. Sir, at the beginning of the class, the teacher says, see, in the YouTube there is a lecture. How to go about with this? So the teacher plays that YouTube and he just vanishes, right? That is also possible. Whether we should be doing that, I think new pedagogy will teach us the best and the negative influence of all these things. Before I conclude, I would like to mention 3 emerging pedagogical trends. A move to opening up learning, making it more accessible and flexible. Lecture is no longer the unique center of learning. I think we have to share this feeling, right? Only through lecture we could influence upon the learning process. Second, an increased sharing of power between the instructor and the student, developing and supporting student autonomy, right? And the third, an increased use of technology, not only to deliver, I'm sorry, it's going out. There is some other problem. An increased use of technology, not only to deliver teaching, but also support and assist the students, and to provide new forms of student assessment. And this is what I mentioned in defining it. Teaching, learning, assessment, and evaluation and certification. All these things will form part of that the new pedagogical trends, right? These are the issues and challenges which, right? Very quickly, the bandwidth available at the institutional level, accessibility for the students, right? Attention span of the students, right? Teachers training in the use of ICT, all these, and finally, last but 3, the creation of MOOCs. The UGC has introduced that the students, even in regular universities, can opt for 20% of SWAYAM courses or the MOOCs programs online, and if they give the certificate, that must be translated as the grades obtained by the student in their own institution. And last year, the percentage has been increased by the UGC from 20% of the courses to 40% of the courses. The students are not taking it seriously. I have incorporated these changes in our regulation. I have notified it, but the student has not taken any course on the MOOCs and given any certificate to move forward. Privacy issues of the teachers, somebody records the lecture, and then what about the issue, somebody, I have seen some of the parents standing at the back. Oh, the teacher doesn't know how to pronounce this language, how to pronounce this word. Maybe the, parents are lawyers or judges. Oh, this is not the way that they have to teach. At the background, they keep on murmuring. I think the privacy issues of the teachers must also be kept in mind. Teacher to be a regular student of ICT to cope up with the demand of the millennials. And then ultimately, we have to do everything in a much more focused manner, much more broader manner in the interdisciplinary, multidisciplinary and transdisciplinary approach in teaching of law. Otherwise, I think we'll be lagging behind. With these few words, I will stop the sharing. And I'm sorry I'm not able to explain these points. I will send you this PowerPoint presentation, and I've given you that the portal of Canada. You can also download these changes that which we need to keep in mind as we proceed. I'll stop here. If there are any questions or observations, I'll be too happy to respond to them. And I have not seen many teachers switching on their cameras as well, excepting say around the first 1.5 rows, excluding me and Elizabeth.
Good morning, sir.
Yeah.
So you were discussing about the collaborative teaching between teacher and student. So even we have realized that there's a lot of information and development taking place in each field.
Yeah.
Now, sir, I have a little bit problem in drawing the balance. How much the information should be imparted from the teacher side and how much should be expected that the student will learn from themselves in the process of collaborative teaching. So how the balance should be drawn, or how actually it should be realized?
I think it depends upon the subject matter. The students have what you call it as a mental block. The moment I go to the class to say that I'm going to teach political science, economics, history, or sociology, unanimously they'll ask the question, why should I study this? Right? They start with this question. So therefore, any information that you try to pass, they're not interested in that. Unless and otherwise, you respond to that question in a much more meaning. This is what we do. When we go to the classes, we just dissect everything and tell them with example. Without knowing legal history, you will not understand ABC of what the judges say at some point of time or the other. Right? Without understanding politics, you will not understand the meaning of the definition of state. You spend 20 hours in explaining what a state is. But if you know the foundations in political science, it is much more easier to explain to students. So therefore, how much information you need to pass, how much information the students need to understand, I think that balance is always a changing point of balance. Right? It depends upon the circumstances. You cannot peg it at a particular point and say this is the balance and stick on to that. You must be much more flexible in giving sometimes more information when it is required, and then use the students. This is the place where we used to conduct tutorials in the law school. The best of the students, because let me tell you, some of the students are willing to listen to the students, their own colleagues. If they went and taught them what political science is, what economics is in their own language, giving their own examples, they are willing to listen to them. Right? But they have some sort of mental block when they come to the classroom. So we have used the students themselves to teach them, not in the classroom. Right? Outside the classroom, so they equip themselves, come back and understand what is going on in the classroom. So it is only balancing that understanding. That is one way. Second way is we also allow the teachers to give tutorials. The weak students would come, once again you repeat, right? But you have to use, you cannot repeat the same thing again and again. you have to employ a different module or a different method in making them understand, because they come with a doubt. I'm not able to follow your lectures. How best I can do it? So therefore, the teachers themselves must change their pedagogy to tell them when they go for tutorials, right? And then the third level, the final year students, some of the mature students, good enough, right? I, somehow even sometimes rate them better than some of the teachers, right? You take them to the classroom with you and make them present, right? And challenge them, question them openly in the classroom. They also respond. So you build different blocks to make 3 or 4 different varieties of students in the classroom, broad groups in the classroom, so that they take ownership of learning. In spite of all these things, we have also failed. It all depends upon the student body. If enjoyment, life enjoyment is the only purpose, then they will not learn anything. We have done everything that is possible, right, at every level, but ultimately it is left to the student to take it or leave it, right? So what is that balance? It is what you have to fix it, possibly in your course, possibly in each and every classroom. So first few minutes you ask the students whether they were able to follow your lectures, right? Whether they have any doubts. And sometimes you will see many occasions we have spent the entire classroom responding to their questions, even without starting what we were supposed to start. But we have done many addressing their doubts, clarifying their doubts. And in that process, we have also learned a great many things which the books do not give us, right? So therefore, the balancing is a tricky situation. I will not commit the blunder of saying 50%, 40%. I think it is a changing balance, right? It is a flexible balance. Every day it may change, right? Every occasion you may have to change. You have to shift the balance almost. No, I'll teach you, please listen to me. One full class. Then you have any questions. All these things are possible. I think we need to be aware of where to stop and what to learn and how to move forward. Then I think you will be a better teacher.
Thank you, sir. May I, sir?
Yeah,
I'm having
please.
2 questions, sir. Sir, one thing is with respect to the introduction of artificial intelligence. As you rightly pointed out by sir, the rows. Sir, do you think that in the near future, the AI will be introduced to teach to the students?
Yes, of course. Of course, why not?
Sir, then what is the
When
position of the teachers in case
in medicine, when medicine, particularly microsurgeries, they said, they used to bring experts. Dr. Cherian in Railway Hospital in Chennai, he used to travel all over the country, all over the world to perform open heart surgery, right? Today, microsurgeries of brain, open heart surgery, replacement of body parts, they're all done by robots, right? They're all, trained by the, the information that is fed in, right? Artificial intelligence, right? It is going to play havoc, no doubt about it, right?
it means
And I
that
think if you're teaching IPR, you will know whether a program done based on AI, should AI be given the IPR rights, right? So
yes,
these
sir,
are
yes,
all
sir.
issues which I think I have no answer, and I cannot pose myself as if I have an answer. But these things will slowly but steadily dismantle the teaching that we are undertaking today, the way that we are teaching today. That much
So the
I can.
teachers, yes, sir. Then the teachers will be replaced by the artificial robotics, sir.
Not necessarily. Who gives that information? See, please try to understand. I have been a student of Fortran 4 way back in 1975. The first lesson I was told is garbage in and garbage out. The computer is only a processor. The information that you give in, it processes and delivers. That's all. To give that information, who is doing it? To collaborate that information, right? You just imagine that a robo surgery, which will do a microsurgery of the brain, you allow the same robot to use heart surgery or replacement of liver. What will be the consequence? So therefore, what you feed in is what you get. The machine is only reading and employing whatever you are feeding in, right? So therefore, still I think the human brain is the supercomputer, right? But to
Yes.
what extent it will replace, if it can replace everything. Today, you see some of the entire railway system is run by the computers. The human intervention is not there. How many flights, right? Fly-by-wire mechanism. The human intervention is almost removed. But still the pilot is there. Because wherever now the 5G, which has created a new problem, the landing and takeoff system is not working properly, then you need the human intervention, right? So you have to place human brain above the artificial intelligence. I think artificial intelligence is what we have developed, right? It will replace totally, it may replace the use of the brain in some places, right? And then that is what many people said, with the internet coming into picture, people will have no work. But you see the other way is, increasing, there is more increased workforce, right? In spite of less and less being employed in, industries, they're all now being employed in information and security agencies, right? So I think, once again, whether it can totally replace and whether it will replace the teachers, I have my own doubts, right? In the last 3 years, MOOCs could not do much of the damage, right? I don't know. Even I went to some. It is also information given by the teacher. There are a lot many mistakes. I don't want to share all my thoughts. There are a lot many mistakes even in the MOOCs program. Who will question them? Because you take it or leave it. If you want to take a good grade, you say to whatever the teacher has said, whatever is the teacher has prescribed as the right answer, you have to give that as the right answer. Even if you are intelligent, you know the right answer, you cannot choose the right answer because the machine will not accept that as the right answer. I hope you understand what I am trying to tell you.
Yes, sir, exactly, sir. And the next question, sir.
Yeah.
Somewhere else I have read that by 2030 or by 2050, there will be no physical classroom teaching. And in another report, I have read that by 2050, there will be no higher educational institution and only 10 higher education institution in the globe. And all the higher educational institution will be under the umbrella of the 10 higher educational institution that has been recognized by the global level. Is it true, sir? Because in your slide also you have mentioned that the students will no longer be recorded to be physically present in the classroom.
Yeah.
What's
Yeah,
your view?
you are not physically present in the classroom, right?
Yes.
This is only a 1 hour exercise, but I think it will increase. Now, these are all the vision documents, right? Let me tell you, at the end of the tunnel, there is also light. You cannot imagine an educational institution without the physical contact, the social cohesion. If you want to reproduce only robots as human beings, what you say is 100% right. But man is a human, man or a woman is a social animal, right? That cohesion will never ever develop. I think Yendiran in Tamil, right, which Rajinikanth has done, right? Unless and unless the robots also gets the human feeling of love and affection, right? Smell and taste, right? Which I think they're doing it, right? Only robots will be there, and there are movies taken. The next world war will be fought not by human beings but by robots, right? Not by equipment but by ultraviolet rays. Right, all these things, these are all visions, these are all things, but maybe they will destroy the human race, destroy all these developments at one go, and then once again, way back in 80s, I read a cartoon in the Span magazine published by the American Embassy here, right? In the history class, the students ask a question, what would happen if there is a third world war, right? The teacher says, after the third world war, the people will be fighting with bows and arrows. Right? After the third world war, the people will be fighting with bows and arrows. So once again, you have to reinvent the whole wheel again. right? There will be total destruction, and that is what people are now trying to prevent, right? One mistaken press of a button can eliminate the entire human race in no time, right? I think these are all the problems, but I don't think that they can replace all these universities and institutions of learning. And then if that is true, that is going to be true, then I think all of us will be obese, not 6 foot tall, but 3 feet wide, right? Sitting in the chairs, couch potatoes, right? Good for nothing people, right? I don't know, we would like to become zombies of that nature. So I think everything, it proportionately we have to take it, right? And now itself, the people are telling the children, the screen time is to be cut, right? What does it mean? That everyone, in the first thing that we see in the morning is a mobile phone, and the last thing that we see in the night is also the mobile phone, right? When we can't separate ourselves from the use of mobile, how can we tell our children not to do so? These are all things, but slowly things will emerge. The psychology is an aspect which AI possibly cannot replace, right? Let us see. Let us wait and see. Another 2-3 decades, we'll possibly may not be here. I will not be here, but at least you will be there to enjoy what it is.
Thank you, sir.
Sir, if time allows, I have one concern. Can I, sir?
Yeah, please
Yes, sir,
go
yes,
ahead.
sir.
Thank you, sir. Sir, myself, Gino. I'm a faculty of TNNLU. So, after listening to your class, I thought like we are changing our teaching pedagogy, and also like we are introducing ICT enabled tools and all. So, what about evaluation, sir? So, in this point of time, even students also need to have this kind of like the same method of evaluation schemes we are still following, like a research paper they have to prepare, examination they have to write, and just they need to just scan and upload. That is what we are changing now. So other than that, what other changes we can introduce in that sector?
I think I made a mention about LMS, Learning Management System.
Yes.
When the previous Nirmal Singh here asked this question, that after 3 decades there will be no universities, physical universities, right? What he meant was it will be occupied by the LMS, right? You log on to a particular course, from beginning to the end, you will pass through that LMS software, you will read something. At the end of that lecture or whatever it is, the material that they give, there will be a set of questions, and you have to respond to the questions, right? And when you log out, automatically it evaluates. There is no human intervention. It evaluates and gives you the mark. So there will be tests, as many frequent tests as possible. If you engage 90 hours, there will be 90 different tests, right? At the fag end of that, the system itself will generate, collate all the information, add up, take the average and say, this is the mark that you have obtained. And you say, press the certificate, it will print the certificate and give it to you, right? The signature is not required because it is computer generated. You have to trust it, or they may print it on a sheet with already signed by somebody, digital signature. All these things are realities of life. It is happening today. We are also, I don't know how many of you know about it. I would appreciate if Elizabeth would, organize the next FDP program. It cannot be in the virtual mode. To become virtual mode, we need to have the physical mode of FDP, where all the teachers must be given the facility to use the LMS software, how to create a course in the LMS software from top to bottom, from evaluation to certificate, everything, lectures, coordinated, reading material, additional material, everything will be, brought in together by the teacher, assemble them, put it in a format, administer it. At the fag end, you can just relax, press the button, you will have the score of each and every student. The student will have the certificates, right? And Moodle is a platform which is given free of cost by the HRD ministry. And that Moodle software I am also trying to explain to my faculty members so that we can produce though not all the entire 100%, 50% we will leave it to the students online. You take the test whenever you feel like, but only once you will take it, right? Or if you want to improve, then it will have the grade called as improved, because they may take the answers from somebody, right, that you cannot prevent. There is a place where the cheating will take place, right? When I am logging on in the LMS software, I'll use a mobile phone, ask my class 1 student, what is his answer for this question? Or the student himself, I want to contest the election, give me the answers, right? So they will dictate the answers and everyone will get very good marks, right? So the human element can cheat the system, right? It's not absolute. It is not going to do everything in the proper manner, unless and otherwise we are also proper and loyal to the system to which we are working. Otherwise, it's a huge challenge. It's a huge challenge. LMS is from beginning first class to the last class, and after the last class there is nothing called as examination, right? It is only printing of results by you and printing of results by the students themselves. Autonomous. They are autonomous, you are autonomous. The one problem is, in this process, you will not write any recommendation letter for the students because you don't know them.
Sir,
These are all challenges. These are all social challenges which we need to look at and we're around.
Sir, this is Dr. Hemlata Bhatt. I hope I'm audible to you.
You are.
Yeah, sorry for not switching on my video, because the moment I switch on, I just get disconnected. So I just didn't want to miss it. I just didn't want to miss your lecture. So I just have a small query. Sir, you had rightly pointed out how libraries, have a very transforming role, in the sense with the digitization, the role of the library staff has changed. But I have a very fundamental question, in the sense, with all the digitization, with all the books that are available from so many sources, whether it is Project Gutenberg or archive.org or even the Russian site like LibGen, the reading habit has come down. I mean, I don't see these days teachers discussing books, but what I hear from my own teachers is discussing the technology of teaching and learning and evaluation. Of course, all respects and all, weightage to it. But what is the purpose when the books are digitized to the maximum, but not being read by, leave the students, but not by even the teachers? Where are we heading towards? Are we becoming glorified technocrats only managing the LMS and other things, or are we doing the real kind of academics? This is the question I had. Thank you very much, sir.
Excellent question, Hemlata, and that is the dilemma. As you start looking into Google search or any other search engine, the moment you come across some article, first thing that you try to do is download and store it, because you don't have time to read.
Yes.
Right? You spend much of your time in downloading. 1 full hour is gone. When will you sit and read?
Correct. Yeah.
So you have access to information, right? But you don't have time to read them. In the initial stages, I was also a victim of this, because I had this notebook, right? I had the iPad and I wanted to get a bigger iPad, 12-inch iPad I got when I went to US, and brought it, and there is a nice way of reading the books. So I downloaded all the freely available download classical books, right? And you can turn the page as if you are physically turning the pages of a book. It is bending and you have the same feeling. I downloaded more than 200 books. To be very frank with you, I have not read any. Right? That is the problem. Now, if a teacher is good, I would ask the students to read one book which can open up their mind critically, not simply blabber what the court has said, what the law is saying, something which can make people think, right? Some article which will make the people think that the judgment is wrong. that the law is wrongfully framed. This amendment is wrong. You know, their ability to question and challenge the status quo needs to be developed, and that can be developed only your reading habit is to be inculcated, right? And reading habit, I think, because you asked this question, I'm just explaining. When you read the SMS, the English language is different. And sometimes, you know, it is also auto-edited, you know, the moment you key in the first two letters, it gives the word. It takes the word automatically. It's also AI based, right?
Yes. Yes.
And you want to say something, something else appears.
Yes.
They have to apologize. No, this is not what I intended.
Yes.
So all these things, we don't have time. We don't have the patience. We need to apply the brakes, and you must be determined. The student must be trained. Don't download more than 2 or 3 articles in a day. Don't download more than a book a day. You read that book, then only you have the right to download the other book.
Correct.
Then I think the culture of reading whatever little you have downloaded and wisdom arising out of whatever little that you are exposed to will start coming into picture. These are all trends. I think we will also learn over a period of time. And it's a good question. I think that is the way that we have confidence. I have control over so many books. And I told you I have got more than 200 books in my iPad. Yeah. But, you know, whenever I go to or prepare some classes, I have the book on John Locke, 2 treatises on civil government. When I go to some classes, I need to have some quotations. So I go to some specific chapters, seek that paragraphs, copy it, paste it, and bring it to my class. That's all. But reading from top to bottom, to be very frank with you, I have not done it. It's a problem. It's a problem of the human mind, right? Yeah. Possession is more important than reading.
Correct.
We need to change this attitude, and the pedagogy that you have to employ must very clearly tell the students of your own experience, right? Yeah. And in Ambedkar Law University, when I was there, one student downloaded 500 articles, right? It was a paid portal. And then immediately we received a mail from them saying that we have blocked your access to this information. So and so student from this IP address has downloaded 500 articles yesterday between this hour and this hour. See, they are sitting somewhere else. And it is likely to be misused. Please seek an explanation and let us know. Then we went to the IP address, found out the student. It was an LLM student, and she was saying, sir, I was going out on vacation. I thought I'll read 500 articles. Will you read? Right? Straight away, I will make her as the vice chancellor.
Correct. Yeah.
So these are all issues. These are all, you know, individual behavior. We need to understand, and that is where pedagogy is as a facilitator. You have to tell your own experiences, right? If you know, it is everything is in commons, but don't infringe upon the commons of others, right? If it is available freely, you read one article and then go to the second one. Without reading, don't download and store it. You know, this type of culture possibly will come through. Let us wait and see.
Thank you very much, sir, for that very kind of an autobiographical account also that you gave. Thank you very much.
Welcome. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Due to passing
time, shall I ask just one more question?
Next session we are having at 11:45, sir. Now the time is 11:50.
Yes. Okay, then fine.
So sorry, sir. Due to the time constraint, I am not able to take up the questions. Yes, sir. Sir, if you allow me, I will request Dr. Dilshat ma'am, Dean Skura University, to propose the formal vote of thanks. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you so much, sir. Am I audible, sir?
Yeah, you are.
Yes, ma'am.
So, a warm and cherished morning to our most valued expert speaker today, Dr. Vijayakumar, sir, Vice Chancellor, National Institute University, Bhopal, and Dr. V.S. Elizabeth, Vice Chancellor of Tamil Nadu National Law University, and also the organizing committee, teachers, and also everyone. It is my privilege to propose a vote of thanks and acknowledge the contribution of the great intellectual, Dr. Vijayakumar, sir. On behalf of all participants, sir, I, Dr. Dilsha Sheikh, Dean School of Law, Satyabama Institute of Science and Technology, and also a participant of this program. And I am a participant because I wanted to listen to great experts like you, sir. And I personally thank you also, sir, for your contribution towards making the academics and to as the way you are encouraging the academics is always inspiring. Today, we had the opportunity to hear to your thoughts, and this is definitely is going to encourage us in our future planning as academics, and your thoughts always enlightened, and now also it is enlightening our minds, and it is showing us a new path to be facilitators to offer customized teaching to the learners. As a part of this prestigious university, we have already introduced the LMS system and the teaching and evaluation, how it is getting changed during this pandemic. It is quite visible to everybody. And I also worked with a kind of scenario where when I started my career, sir, I was just bothered about the syllabus part, how much syllabus I need to cover. Nothing like I was into any of the administrative work, neither, nor I was able to understand like how system works. But at the end of the day, people like you, the great visionaries like you, have made us really understood how the system is functioning, and also made us to think about the future and how the future will be. Today also the same thing, when you are talking about the robotic thing, we understood how Swayam is working. And yes, I do agree, like Swayam never replaced the teachers. But at the end of the day, when we are talking about the customized education, as you have specifically mentioned, I am experiencing it, and I know most of the participants have already experienced it. And we are making ourselves ready to really discharge our duties, not as teachers, professors, or whatever may be the designation, but as facilitators. So I really thank Madam Vice Chancellor for organizing this kind of faculty development program, wherein the interdisciplinary approach need to be understood by all the faculties, not only by the faculties who alone are taking the interdisciplinary papers, but definitely by the administrators and also by the fellow participants as teachers. The importance of interdisciplinary teaching is so very important, and this is appropriate time to understand it during the period of COVID, because we are separating ourselves from the other discipline subjects. So I thank all the speakers for adorning the occasion and sharing their opinions, and also for sharing their knowledge. Thank you so much, Vijayakumar sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, sir. Now I request all the participants to join the next session by using the link that we have shared in the chat box. Thank you all. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Colleagues, sir, please end the session, sir.
Yes, sir. Okay, sir.
Okay, sir.